Welcome back, everybody, to episode 2 of the Crystal Basketball Podcast. Here with Rashad Landers, I'm Ethan Fuller. Coming back for our second episode. Last time we broke down some of the NBA draft sleepers that we really like. We're going in a different direction with this episode. We're going to start at the top of the 2021 high school rankings and kind of work our way down. So for this episode, we've tackled the first 4 players in the class of 2021. This is based on 24/7's rankings, which updated, I believe, this past week. So they're pretty fresh. And we'll break down each one, talk about their skills, maybe some of their college fits that we like, and a lot of that. And I know, Rashad, you know a lot more about this high school class than I do. For me, I was looking at film with these guys. This was honestly some of the first times I've gotten to check out some of these players. So your knowledge is going to be really helpful here. And I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of high school. For those of you who don't know, I just kind of just start at high school and go to college. And, I'll make my way to the NBA every now and then, but I like to focus on high school and college.
Yeah, so that's great. And I think that's going to complement my lack of expertise as far as high school goes well. So I guess, yeah, we can kick it right off. Do you want to start at the top of the rankings, or you want to start at number 4 and go up? How do you want to do this?
We can start with Chet Holmgren, man, number one.
All right. So Chet Holmgren, this is a guy. So the way we kind of work this out is we take these 4 and break them down. Each of us gets 2 that we kind of focus a little bit more on, but we both kind of keep track of all 4. And Rashad knows all these guys anyway. So we start with Chet Holmgren. He was one of my guys. For me, looking at Chet, this guy is one of I would say the most unique prospect that I've ever seen. And that's saying a lot. Like, you think about a guy ranging from like LaMelo to Luca to whatever crazy stretch big you want to think of. So Chet is probably the most confusing, intriguing, just strange prospect that I've ever seen. He is a 7-foot elite shot blocker, some of the best shot blocking skills probably that we've ever seen out of a high school junior, and really any high schooler. Has real range on his perimeter jumper. And then there's a lot of really weird stuff about him. He's super duper skinny, doesn't play that physical, even though he's such a great shot blocker. Rashad, I'll let you kind of go into more of a breakdown of him too, but Chet really has confused me, so I want to hear your opinion on him.
With Chet, like you said, I mean, it's unique. We've kind of never seen anything like this. Some people try to say Durant just because of how skinny he is, but they're 2 different positions and 2 different skill sets. With Chet, I think he's going to be a power forward, unless he just suddenly just gets bigger. But with his skill set and the shot blocking ability, I can always see him at the 4. The only reason you would put him at the 5 is because he is a legit 7-footer. The thing that got Chet so famous that I think that bumped him up to number 1 was the Steph Curry camp. People saw him do, I think, between the legs twice, then a behind the back to go around Steph Curry and dunk it. And people were like, whoa, this is a 7-footer doing this. So actually, that's how I think Chet became number 1. He had a pretty decent season, played alongside Jalen Suggs, who's going to be at Gonzaga this year. But, I mean, I've never seen anything like Chet. It's hard to describe him. Like you said, tremendous shot blocking. He also has a great jump shot. It kind of has a hitch in it, but, it works and it goes in. It's kind of consistent. And, other than that, besides shooting and shot blocking, he has a little bit of ball handling. But, I mean, there's not really much more to offer. So, with him being number 1, I think it's just a Paul Biancardi thing. I've said it recently on my personal channel that Paul Biancardi loves big men. If you look at the last years, or even since ESPN 100 was introduced, it's been like bigs that's been number 1 most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton ended up number 1 in that class, right? He beat out Michael Porter.
Um,
I think
I
we could
Which
check
class
that.
were they in? What
Yeah.
class were they in?
That was 2017 high school class. But I mean, yeah, you think about like Harry Giles too. Marvin Bagley was number 1 at one point. There's a lot of bigs.
Yeah, Marvin Bagley was number 1, Michael Porter Jr. was 2, and DeAndre Ayton was number 3.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's really as you said, that kind of tells you a lot about the rankings. Chet, to me, is there's a lot that he has to get better at, and I'm happy that he's going to be only a senior right now, because if he say was a draft prospect, I probably would be very, very skeptical on him, because there's such a long way to go. If he's going to be a 4, as you said, and especially if he's going to be a 5, he's got to put on a good 30 to 40 pounds, and that's a lot. And at the same time, I think his handle is a little bit overrated because of the Steph Curry clip. I think he has a good handle. I don't think it's he's a guard that is 7 feet
Yeah.
tall. I don't think it's like that. He battles for rebounds, but he's not great at boxing out. Like he doesn't play that physical, even though he's inside so much. He's not that fast, and he looks pretty tired a lot. He looks like he has great effort. He's involved, high IQ guy, but he looks tired a lot on the court, or at least in the games that I was able to watch. So there's a lot of question marks there as far as what his physical upside is, because one, yeah, he's 7 feet, super long and really coordinated for his size, but at the same time, there's a lot that he has to get better at. And so if you're looking at him entering the senior year, what do you think are the 2 or 3 areas that he could really like boost his stock if he got better at these things?
I think everyone's gonna say this, but he has to put on some pounds some type of way, man. But I mean, if I was him, I would start a meal plan right now, honestly, just to help myself out for the future. Outside of that, I think, like you said, boxing out his hands, and anything else that has to do with post work, because he has like no type of face up game really, or no type of back to basket with him. Like I said, it was just kind of like shooting and shot blocking was the main 2 things that I say. So if he could develop some type of face up or post up game as well, that could be another thing. And like you said, the handle is overrated because of the Steph Curry clip. Sometimes he looks a little timid with the ball. So, if he wants to actually progress and make his handle good, I think that's another thing that he can work on as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think there's promise there, because he is like he's a smart player. His verticality on defense is great. Like he's not it's not just that he's long and he's able to block shots. Like he's so great at going up with a guy and not fouling a lot and still blocking the shot. Like he's such a smart defensive player in that way. Uh, and yeah, as you said, like there's a long way to go. I mean, when I was watching his games, he kind of was more of a second option because you had Jalen Suggs, who was amazing, obviously for them. But maybe in this coming year, when he really is probably the number one option for high school, maybe that gives him a chance to kind of work on a post up game, get more touches inside, and like give himself the chance to show that he's more of a scorer than just a finisher and maybe like a stretch 5.
Uh, I mean, yeah, I think they go through him, but it'll be interesting to see because many haha they try to play a national schedule, and they're allowed to. And when it comes to dominating their like school ball, he's going to be okay. What I'm interested to see though, the coach over there, I don't know if he's more of a guard oriented guy or a big, because he's never really ran the offense through Chet. I wouldn't be surprised if he ran it through Prince League, another 4-star guy over there, who's 6'6" small forward, and he go through him instead of Chet. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. With these prospects, we also want to take a look at what their future might look like. Obviously, it's way too early to predict them as an NBA prospect. And especially in Chet's case, it is foolish to try and compare him to any NBA player, because there really is no one like him that I've ever seen. And I would imagine that you agree in some ways. But the next step for these guys is going to be college, unless there's a sudden rule change. And so we could take a look now. Chet's given us his top 7, or given everyone his top 7. He's got Gonzaga, Georgetown, Memphis, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio State, and UNC. as his top 7. Interesting list of schools. You don't see Kentucky or Duke on there. What do you make of that top 7? And as you look at those schools, is there any fit that stands out to you? How do you kind of dissect that?
Honestly, out of all those schools you named, I'm just going with Zaga or Memphis, man, because I mean, of course, Jalen Suggs is over at Zaga. He's most likely one and done though, but we've seen the progression that Mark Few does with bigs. If you look at Kispert, Zach Collins, all of those guys, Drew Timmy's over there right now. He works with bigs and he loves he runs the offense through them, and he kind of like combines it together where he teaches them how to play. But I've seen guys put on weight in their program as well. And with Memphis, I mean, it's Penny Hardaway. Well, from what I've seen, he just can make anything work as long as you're good. So those are the only two teams that I've seen as the best fit. Of course, Minnesota has a chance. I don't think he's a fit, but they have a chance because, the hometown kid. But, those are the 2 or 3 best schools that I got from it.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with you. I think you nailed that. And I mean, you know more about kind of the recruiting game than I do, but based on what you've said, I completely agree. Gonzaga does a great job, as you said, with getting bigs not only to be productive and evolve in their personal growth, but also get ready with NBA skills. I mean, you mentioned the guys that you said. Another one is Killian Tilly. I know he was hurt so much, but he's a guy that has an NBA style of play. And I think that passing that down to someone like Chet is going to be huge, especially on the perimeter. Memphis, as you said, I mean, their recruiting is just so impressive at this point, and they've been able to get a lot of quality bigs in their program as freshmen, like Precious Achua, James Wiseman, obviously. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they were pulling hard for Chet. And yeah, I mean, Minnesota, as you said, like they're always going to have an outside chance, quality program, home state. But I think I agree with you. I'd probably put Gonzaga as my best fit and probably my prediction. This is also based off no intel. This is pure speculation, but Gonzaga, then Memphis right behind them. I'd probably agree with you. And then any other thoughts on Chet Holmgren? Any important things to kind of cover with him? I know he's such a strange prospect in that way.
Yeah, man, that's pretty much all I've got on Chet. I mean, their group is called the Unicorn. I mean, you've never seen anything like it, so of course he's a different breed. So I mean, yeah, that's pretty much all I have.
Okay, we can move on to number 2 in the rankings. I believe that's Pat Baldwin.
Yep, Pat Baldwin. Yep.
He played at Hamilton, a dynamic, elite shooter and scorer. And I think I really liked watching him in what I was able to see. There's not a lot of film out there that was like, other than kind of highlight reels. But I loved getting to see what he could do. He's one of the best shooting prospects we've seen in a long time. Like he has the full package at 6'9", 6'10", where he can pull up, he can come off the dribble, have a sidestep or step back, catch and shoot. Form looks great, knocks it down a ton. Like this guy is exactly what you want at the next level from a shooting perspective. Like he's great there. He's also great in transition. Pretty good handle for his size, and can just push the ball, push the pace a lot. What else did you kind of notice about Baldwin that you liked?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't think he's done growing.
Wow.
I mean, he was 6'5" coming in as a freshman, 6'7" as a sophomore, 6'9" as a junior, and he's in that 6'9", 6'10" range right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits 6'11", honestly. And like you were saying, this is probably one of the best shooters I've seen in a long time, especially at his size. We talked about the comparison with Jason Tatum. It's a long ways to go, but it's obviously there, man. He's longer than Tatum as well, too. Taller than Tatum. The shooting is about the same. I don't think he has the tendencies of the, post up and fade away like Tatum. But in terms of, mid-range pull-ups and shooting from the outside, I think it's great. You know, An interesting thing is he actually has the ability to attack as well. I've seen him where he can change his pace. He also knows how to use a floater, which is what surprised me. You know, a lot of prospects nowadays forget about the floater, but a bucket is a bucket. I mean, honestly, probably has the best skill set in the class if we're going to be honest.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. He's a pretty solid playmaker. As you said, his change of pace ability, he has a great first step. And that with his length, he can kind of blow by guys and kind of explode to the rim and get a layup. Um, I agree with what you said that he doesn't have the poster face up game that Tatum has right now. I think like most prospects, he's just got to put on more weight. Honestly, he's still pretty skinny. Um, Defensively, that I didn't like a whole wasn't a lot to love defensively. He can block some shots. He's obviously long and the tools are there, but just him not he doesn't have a lot of the kind of aggressive attack mentality on defense, and I think that hurts a little bit sometimes. He's pretty inconsistent on the defensive end, but yeah, as far as offense goes, I completely agree with you. He's one of the most polished offensive prospects I think we've seen in the last 5 or so years.
Yeah, defensively, I mean, I see him guarding either the three or four, most likely the three, because I mean, yeah, he can block shots, of course, because of his length. But outside of that, there's not really much there defensively, if we're going to be honest. And another underrated thing I like is I've seen a lot of him passing out of double teams. I like that a lot because of course, in high school, he's going to be the best player on the court most of the time, and he doesn't have a problem with passing the ball. So that's another thing that I like about him.
Yeah, and he's just such a I mean in that way and everything else you said, he's just such an NBA fit. Like he's perfect for what you want. I mean, he's going to be like a dynamic four in the sense that Tatum is a four where you slide him down there, but he honestly like probably plays the three too. And if he gets up to 6'11", like you said, that's crazy. That's a whole nother matchup problem. Um, do you want to go into college breakdown now, or anything more you want to say on him?
Yeah, we can go into college break now. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it with that.
All right, cool. Yeah, so let me pull up this list for you. He's got a top 10. I believe he announced this in May, so I don't think it's narrowed down at all. But I'll list this for you. There's Duke, Wisconsin, and UW Milwaukee, where his dad coaches. Michigan, Northwestern, Georgetown, UNC, Virginia, UCLA, and Kentucky are his top 10. So you got the Blue Bloods on there. Um, Interesting schools like a lot of those kind of Midwest schools like Northwestern, Wisconsin, Michigan are in there, which is also pretty interesting. But what's pops out to you from that list?
Honestly, man, I'm just gonna go with the two dominant powerhouses, Duke and Kentucky, and then I'm gonna throw Michigan in there. I was gonna say Wisconsin, but I don't like the system. A lot of people don't even like the system that's going on in Wisconsin right now. That's why can't think of his name right now, but that's why that guard transferred out of there because he's more of a guy that can get his own bucket, and Wisconsin is not really for that. So I mean, it's the home state, so yeah, I think that's the only reason why it's in there. The place where his dad coaches, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, I think that's what you said.
Yep.
Yeah, they have a chance, just because that connection. But honestly, I think it's between Duke and UK, and I'm leaning towards Duke. With the Jason Tatum comparison, and he saw what Coach K did with Jason Tatum. But it'll be interesting to see, considering AJ Griffin and Paolo is already committed. But that'd be a heck of a class, though.
Yeah, it absolutely would. And I think yeah, that's going to be the pitches that Duke's done a great job with a lot of the forwards they've brought in, and I know Tatum didn't stand out as a star in college, but he became the number 3 overall pick. Obviously, now he's a star in the NBA, and a lot of that has to do with how Krzyzewski got him ready. So I think I'd lean Duke with you on that. Um, I'd probably put some school from the Midwest region in there. Michigan probably is the better fit. I mean, they've done a great job with their recruiting classes recently, so I'd probably put Michigan up there. But yeah, I'd say Duke's number 1. Um, Last question for you as we kind of think about the hierarchy. Are you sticking Baldwin over Chet Holmgren, or is it close right now for you? How do you kind of compare those two?
Man, honestly, I have Baldwin over Chet. I really have Baldwin at number one, in my opinion. I mean, because we know what's there, and the only weakness, like we said, was most likely defense. And much more complete players than Holmgren, and almost the same size.
Yeah, I think I agree with you too. And there's so much more that's polished with him, whereas Chet, there's a lot more that you have to buy into down the road. And I get like these guys are only, I mean, they're going to be high school seniors. There's still a whole year of high school that we can kind of watch and see how they develop. But I think I'd agree with you that Baldwin's further along in his development right now versus Chet Holmgren. The next guy on the list, I believe, is Paolo Banchero. Um, this is a guy that you know and the guy that you watched. I mean I watched a lot of him too because I had never really seen too much of him before. But I'll let you kind of lead off with your thoughts on him.
Yeah, Paolo Banchero. First, if you're gonna look at rankings, please don't look at the position, man. He's not a center. He's a power forward guy. He's 6'8", 230, and that 230 is nowhere near. There's no type of fat or nothing at all. I'm talking about a ripped kid, very strong, very good hands, very bouncy, face up game. Doesn't really have a post up game, but the face up game is there. It's actually legit. And another guy that passes out of double teams, and he no looks out of double teams. So he has a little spice with it. What I like about him though is he's very talkative. He's a leader. If you look at the first two guys, they don't talk a lot, but Paolo, he talks. He leads his team. They're not a national team. They're a local team, but he leads those guys, and that's another thing I like about him a lot.
Yeah, he his passing, as you said, that really kind of surprised me, honestly. I didn't expect someone that played the game that he does was able to pass, but yeah, his no looks, he's a really smart passer. His size helps. I know the game I watched, he was far and away the biggest player on the court, and maybe that was because his other team was pretty small. So I didn't want to over count his size, but yeah, 6'9", 6'10", 235, plays with power, as you said. His shooting, it's inconsistent, but there's promise there. Mechanics look pretty solid. Doesn't really have like a pull-up game or anything, but he'll knock down a spot-up jumper if he has time to set up. Good shot blocker, can help from the weak side. The thing that I noticed that is going to be an issue is that his handle's not very great. I mean, when I've watched him, he's kind of pounding it with the right hand. There was twice in one game that I watched where he really just lost the ball and the other defender wasn't even reaching in. He just kind of lost control of it. Has a hot, inconsistent high handle. That was kind of what made me more nervous. But I think that honestly, if you fix that, he suddenly is a guy who can pass really well, handle the ball better, and maybe that kind of makes him even more of a threat offensively than he already is.
Yeah, and I'd like to see him mix it up because another thing that he does well is it depends on who he's playing. He bases his playing style off of his matchup. So, when he's playing his regular school ball, of course, like you said, everybody is smaller. So, he's going to attack the paint, low post type guy. But when I watch him play EYBL and stuff, he kind of moves more to that face up and then mixes in the low post up. But, it's not like, he's one of those guys that just dominated small guys. I've seen him play against bigger opponents than him, and he dominates them as well. So I mean, with him, if he tweaks everything, I don't think everything's just bad, but if he tweaks everything, he can be really good.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's so rare to see a incoming high school senior with the frame that he has. Like he has arguably like an NBA physicality, and he's a high school senior. And the fact that you kind of have that down, that makes I think a lot of the adjustments that he's going to have to make in college and in the pros so much easier because he can play with physicality already. He's the one guy of these four that has committed to a school already in Duke, and I actually thought that was super interesting because I imagine that the way he's going to be used is similar to the way that Jalen Johnson, who is coming in right now, is going to be used. I mean, Jalen Johnson's like a 6'8", 6'9" ish forward, strong guy, powerful guy, but he's also a really great passer. And I don't think Banchero is the kind of passer that Jalen Johnson is, but he is a good passer. And I think that Duke, in addition, I mean, you think about the kind of passing fours they've had in the past, even a guy like Justice Winslow going all the way back to 2015, like there are interesting passing fours that have been used there. And I think Banchero kind of lines up really well with what Krzyzewski likes to do with his forwards.
Yeah, I don't think Jalen Johnson might be one and done. Uh, but it'll be interesting to see what Matthew Hurt does this year, honestly,
Yeah.
because we expected way more out of him. And I think the college game just kind of hit him hard. So, I think maybe we can see Matthew Hurt still there. And, if a guy like Pat Baldwin comes in as well, it'll be interesting to see. But a lot of times what we see is Coach K move his guys to other positions when he has multiple recruits coming in. That's why you saw, like Cam Reddish at the 4 sometimes would do. I mean, so we know Coach K will make it work. But, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. A lot of people wanted him to go to Washington, hometown and stuff like that. But I don't think he wanted to play in that 2-3 zone, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Washington's been kind of a brutal place for a lot of prospects. I mean, like you talk about Jaden McDaniels, not to hate on Washington because they also have turned out a lot of prospects. I mean, like Markel Fultz is a great example, but
Matisse Thybulle as well.
yeah, Matisse Thybulle is I blanked on him. That's a fantastic example. But yeah, I think the fit that we talk about, us, if we go with our guess that Baldwin's going to Duke, that's an interesting fit with AJ Griffin, Baldwin, and Banchero all together because I think they're a lot closer together as far as positions go than RJ, Zion, and Cam were. Because RJ Barrett, you could play at the 2. Honestly, he was kind of a combo guard in some ways. Cam Reddish could play 2 through 4. Zion was really 3 through 4. But really, with these guys, I mean, you're not going to put AJ Griffin, Pat Baldwin, or Paolo Banchero at the 2. And I don't think you're going to put any of them at the 5 either. Maybe Baldwin, but I don't know. I don't really
I mean,
know how that's going to.
I could see Paolo at the 5.
He's
For
strong enough.
college.
Yeah.
For college, I mean that'll work. If all 3 of them play together, this is how I think it would go. I think it would go, Baldwin at the 3, Griffin at the 4, just because of how big he is as well. He doesn't have the height, but he's big.
Mm-hmm.
And then Paolo at the 5. And honestly, if you have all 3 of those guys crash, even though Paolo can kind of handle it himself, I mean there wouldn't be a problem with rebounding.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. And yeah, AJ Griffin, we're gonna get to him. I'm sure he's probably lined up for our next episode, but he's a guy I'm really excited to talk about because of what he brings. But we'll kind of, I guess we'll tease that. I don't want to go too far into him yet. Any last thoughts on Banchero and kind of what he brings?
Um, I think that's pretty much it. I like how comfortable he is, though, in what he does and his decision making. Sometimes it might not be right, but I do appreciate how comfortable he is, with making his decisions. And like I said, very vocal guy. Bright future, could be a top 10 pick when his time comes.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot to like that's already there, and I think it's going to be a number of small tweaks with him and small improvements, but nothing too major that I think he needs to overhaul right now. Um, Last guy that we've talked about, Jaden Hardy, and he was, I guess, quote unquote, assigned to me for this episode, but I know you love Jaden Hardy, so I'll pass it to you first, and then I'll tell you what I noticed about him.
With Jaden Hardy, I'm talking about probably the best scorer in the class. I mean, we've seen 63-point games. We've seen 50 on the EYBL circuit. We've seen extreme numbers because, I mean, it's jump shots almost like it's like guarding Damian Lillard almost. From where he shoots it from, isolation or coming off screen. I think you have to run a double at him, and that's hard to say. Running a double at a guy in high school, you wouldn't think of anything like that. But with him, you do, and there's sneaky athleticism there as well. But what I like about him is he doesn't force shots, in my opinion. If he thinks it's a good shot, he's going to take it. There's a few bad shots. I say probably 2 out of 10 of his shots will be like a bad shot or a shot that you would question. But, sometimes they go in. They 24/7 I was talking about, they have that combo guard category, and I love that. because ESPN, they had just put a guy like that as shooting guard, which he can play the one or the two. And a lot of times we've seen him play the one consistently. So I would like to see the playmaking ability improve a lot, look for teammates more. But, other than that, I think he's good. And, he has a solid frame to be able to guard on defense as well.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. He is a crazy elite scorer at his age. He's a great shooter. He's not. I wouldn't put him on a guy like Baldwin's level, but he's a little bit streakier. But when he's on, just the combination of moves that he has is unbelievable. Honestly, even better for me is what he does at the rim. He's so crafty, finishes so many difficult shots at the rim. He's not a power guy like a Dennis Smith who's going to dunk all over you, but he's athletic. He's really athletic, really strong, and can finish in a lot of different ways at the rim. He's so hard to stop, and I think that's why you even see the 50-point games in the EYBL, where the competition is so much tougher. He's so hard to stop in transition because of his speed, his ball handling ability. As you said, playmaking is inconsistent right now. I don't think he's a bad passer just in his vision, but his decision making isn't great at times. He'll kind of get some tunnel vision and seek out a shot instead of passing it around. For me, the issue, and it's not a major issue. I mean, a lot of young guards have this problem, is that he'll be kind of passive on defense sometimes. He's strong, and when he has a guy he's guarding one-on-one, he's a pretty solid defender, but just kind of his team defense leaves a little bit to be desired. He'll kind of wander, ball watch sometimes. And I mean, that's going to happen. He's only a high school senior, but yeah, as you said, the fact that he's what, 6'4", 190 is what I've seen for Jaden Hardy. And that as a young guard with already what he's able to do as a scorer is really, really promising. And I think there's a lot to like about his future.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see because the scoring, it's honestly, it's there, man. I mean, it's exciting to watch. And you'll look back at times at AAU this summer. You got to remember, this is the dude that played alongside Josh Christopher and Jalen Green, at times. And those two guys are scorers themselves. And he was outscoring them even though they were on the same team. And it's not like he was taking the most shots. They were all taking the same amount of shots, but, he was just more consistent than them. So, I mean, honestly, like I said, that was a great point. I honestly love that you pointed that out with the team defense. A lot of people don't pay attention to team defense. And I think that's an underrated aspect of basketball in general. And it's a lot that, a lot of high school guys can improve on, because with high school, it's honestly either zone or just man. And a lot of people forget that man, you can still help in man, or, you can still, read a pass or something. So when he gets to college, I think that's something that they will improve on a lot and they will help him with.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, especially as a scoring guard, defense isn't going to be your top priority. And I mean, obviously you want to focus on all areas, but it's understandable that defense is kind of the weakness right now for him. I think that's something that he can get better at this year, and I think he will get a little bit better at that. And as you said, college is going to be big for him as far as improving in that area, and really just kind of being a better facilitator on offense, running the offense more. I know we did that a lot, but you can always get better there. Off air, I mentioned the Bradley Beal comparison. I don't know if I love that, but I think that there's a lot that I do like about Jaden Hardy, and that he'll play the kind of role that Bradley Beal plays.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Bradley Beal is honestly the best comparison that either one of us could think of, because, I mean, it's actually rare now to see those, 6'4" guards that can score. Bradley Beal being around 6'4", 6'5", he's probably the only one that you can really think of.
Yeah, yeah. So Jaden Hardy, he's got a big list. I don't know if you want me to read this all to you. I'll read it to the listeners, but I don't know if you'll be able to remember all these schools. But he's got a top 12. I believe he announced in the spring. You got Arizona, ASU, Georgia, UCLA, Texas Tech, Georgetown, Oregon, Kentucky, Michigan, Memphis, Kansas, and Illinois. You probably already have a prediction lined up, but is there anyone in that rapid fire list I just gave you that kind of stands out?
UK, of course. Kansas, Memphis, of course. Texas Tech, Arizona State. There's a lot of schools that stands out with that list, because it's a big list, of course.
Mhm.
But man, in terms of best fit, I think he's a UK kind of guy. He's also a Memphis kind of guy. Don't think he's a Kansas kind of guy, honestly. And where Kansas is looking at, I don't think they'll actually need him, when his time comes to announce his college decision. With Arizona, Sean Miller is capable of getting anyone he wants. I don't know how he does it, but he does. And Arizona State is if you look at them with guards lately, man, Luguentz Dort, who just had a heck of a series against the Rockets. And then you got guys like Alonzo Verge and Remy Martin, who's already there. I think their time will end after this because, they could have went to the draft this year but decided to come back. Um, it's a broad list, and Texas Tech. I love Chris Beard. He has Arkansas ties. He brought Little Rock, which is where I'm from. He took them to the NCAA tournament second round one year, and Chris Beard. He's able to coach anybody. So if I had to break that down to four, I would say UK, Memphis, Tech, and maybe Arizona State.
Interesting. I think UK is the front runner too, just because of what they have done with the guards, and they bring in so many guards, and a lot of the guards that they bring in are successful. So I agree with you. UK is a front runner. Arizona State is a really interesting one that you mentioned. I mean, they also have Josh Christopher coming in, and we'll see how that works. I know he'll be a one and done, but that's a big, like, that shows they're kind of on an upward trajectory with what they've been doing with recruiting. Um, I think a school that you didn't mention that I would shout out is UCLA, and I know that's a little bit under the radar as far as they don't bring in a ton of like top recruits. I mean, you had Lonzo obviously, but UCLA's done a really good job with the guards that they've had. I mean, Lonzo is obviously the person that sticks out, but you also had a guy like Aaron Holiday who became a first round draft pick with them. Jalen Hands had kind of an up and down time at UCLA, but he was great too. There's a lot. I think UCLA has an underrated history of positive results with the guards, and I would kind of keep them. I wouldn't consider them like my guess, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were hanging around till the end at least. I think I'd still agree with you though that UK is kind of the team to beat at this point, really with any guard. Like if a guard that you have has UK on their list, then it's gonna be tough to beat.
I think with UCLA, I think it's kind of what happens again this year because there's a lot of guards on their roster that are nowhere near one and done. Like,
Yeah.
guys that actually play like David Singleton, Tiger Campbell, uh, Jules Bernard is there now. Johnny Juzang transferred there from Kentucky. Chris Smith, a guy who I love, man, because he's a 6'9" guard. As soon as he came there his freshman year, I was like, wow, 6'9" guard. Then I saw him play, and he's kind of like a guard type forward type guy. But it's his senior year as well, though, so he won't be there. But like I said, it's interesting to see, how he feels about it because honestly, UCLA, they have about 5 guards on their roster who I don't see going to the draft after this year. So it'll kind of be how he wants to play it if he decides to go there.
Yeah, that is a great point. And I mean, we both have talked about off air how much we like Will McClendon too. And I'm gonna imagine that he's not a one and done, just because of, I mean, it's just a very finite amount of people who end up getting the chance to go one and done. So he could be on the radar too. Yeah, as you said, that's a lot of guards, and that's a good point with the rotation. And again, that kind of backs up Kentucky because they're able to shuffle guys out so much because they're ready for the NBA.
Yeah, and they have UCLA has Peyton Watson too, who is a 5-star on some websites.
Uh,
He's in the same class as Jaden Hardy. He's a 6'6" guard too. But I mean, honestly, man, it's Jaden Hardy, a top 4 prospect. No matter where he goes, he's going to start. So you know, it's kind of how he wants to play it. Like I said.
yeah, he's gonna start and he's gonna score. I think he's one of those guys who's going to be a high impact college and NBA player, which is, I mean, usually a lot of times with one and done guys, they're not exactly all Americans as a guard. It's hard to find a lot of one and done guards who are so amazing and then they're amazing in the NBA. And there's the rare John Walls, Kyrie Irvings of the world. And I mean, do you think, I know this is kind of down the road because you still got a year of high school, can Jaden Hardy be a guy that is successful at both levels?
Yeah, I honestly think he can. Just because of the scoring ability. I mean, it can take you a long way. It's really about scoring, man. Once you get to college, if you can score on a high level, because I got to shout out to guys like Chris Campbell who went to low majors and led the NCAA in scoring and stuff. But if you can score on a high level, even if it's just averaging around 18, and with his name, what a lot of people forget is your name in high school carries over honestly to the NBA, because you see guys that are like top 30 in high school already projected top 15 in their draft just because of their name. So you take his name, and then if he averages about 18 just to get through college, and then the NBA, I can honestly see him his first year at least coming in averaging 15, honestly.
Wow. Wow. That is high praise. And
But
it's warranted.
yeah, I think the next guard that just like comes in and make an immediate impact in the NBA is going to be Cade Cunningham. I mean, obviously, he's a 6'8" point guard, so
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Kate Cunningham is one of the best prospects I've ever seen, and that's probably, I mean, I've seen the last, I would consider myself well versed in the last 5 years of guys as far as seeing their kind of journey. And I would put Cade Cunningham honestly behind. I would put him behind Zion and I put him behind Luca, and that's it. I would probably put Cade Cunningham as the third. Really, just he's so well rounded in everything that he does. I don't think there's a single thing where you look at him and say, ah, man, he really is a liability there. Like he's at least rock solid, if not better, in just about everything that he does.
yeah, and he's very mature too for his age. He talks on the court, but he's really kind of a quiet person at the same time. And he's a leader, man. I love leaders. Leading is something that's underrated in basketball. If you can be a leader in basketball, you can be a leader in life as well. So that's another thing I like about him.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw Montverde, which for my money is one of the best. That's probably one of the single best high school teams ever. And Cade Cunningham, you had a lot of leaders on that team. I think there was no doubt that Cade Cunningham was the unquestioned kind of alpha on that team. But it's not like he was commanding, like he wasn't barking out to anyone. He kind of just did his thing, and everyone respected him for it. And so that's so cool. And I think um, before we get to the last part of questions I want to talk to you about, while we're on this topic, I did want to look at the 2020 high school class and ask you if there were any other guards that you think had the kind of impact that you see with Cade Cunningham and you see with Jaden Hardy. Is there anyone in this coming class of guards that you think has that potential to be both a college star and an NBA scorer?
Um, there's actually a lot in my opinion. It depends, because a lot of these guys they have listed as small forwards or really guards. Like Brandon Boston is one. Another tremendous scorer, Terrence Clark, who I just love watching Terrence Clark play. He's very vocal. I like that.
Mhm.
Um, Jalen Suggs, he has the ability. If he gets his jump shot where it needs to be, he can be legit. Jeremy Roach, Sharif Cooper. Me and my friend were talking about this the other day. I think Sharif Cooper is unguardable in my opinion. I've never seen a guy
Wow.
have three different gears. He can either speed it up, slow it down, or hit you with both or a moderate combo at the same time. Because I mean, we haven't seen many guards that are like 6 foot that plays at his pace and are able to drop 50 whenever they want to. Sharif, I love Sharif Cooper. There's a lot of people from Arkansas that love Sharif Cooper. Uh, outside of that, though, outside of those guys, I don't think there's really anybody else. I mean, there are a lot of good guards in that class. Christian Lander, who was number one in 2021, he went up to 2020 and goes all the way down to like number 30 or something like that. But
Wow.
it'd be interesting to see. I think those are the only guys that can have the impact as Cade and Jaden Hardy, though.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Cade, we talked about him. BJ Boston, I love. I would consider him a top three prospect in that class. Terrence Clark, it's going to be interesting because he does need to get stronger, and I think he needs to be a little bit more consistent with his shooting. But there's potential there, I'm for sure. Jalen Suggs, I think, is going to be an awesome scorer at both levels. I'm confident in his shot. Josh Christopher is another guy who's going to be the guy at Arizona State. Last guy that I would mention as wow, I just keep going down this list. There's so many good. I love the 2020 class. We'll have an episode on this class at some point, but the last guy I would mention is DJ Stewart, who I really like. He's going to Duke. Played at Whitney Young. He's a guy who is 6'3". He's really skinny. He's only 165 on 24/7, but his perimeter game is unbelievable, and he's got great change of pace ability. So he's ranked 26, but at Duke, I know there's a lot of competition at Duke, but if he can kind of solidify himself as that lead guard, I think he's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, honestly, I see him starting at Duke. I don't think there's any competition for it. I mean, unless you think about the guys that's already there, like Jordan Goldwire and stuff. But this is DJ Stewart we're talking about. So
Yeah,
I think he goes in at Duke and he starts. Yeah, like you were saying, that class was deep. Because, I mean, another guy that we could talk about that's just solid in general is Namari Burnett, who played alongside Jalen Green in high school
love
ball.
Lamar Burn. Yeah,
He was like this. He averaged 22, I think, in his high school senior year. Deshaun Nix was going to play in the G League. There was speculation he was the number one point guard. He's solid. It was a lot of guys. I haven't even talked about Jaden Springer yet. That's another guy. And then you got another guy in Adam Miller, who's a scorer at Illinois. I think, man, 2020 might have been a guard class, in my opinion.
yeah, and I mean we didn't even mention Caleb Love, who's going to UNC, is probably going to be the guy there. I
Cam Thomas as well.
Yeah, man, I love Namari Burnett. I'm so glad you mentioned him because he plays with his power is underrated, I think, and
Yeah,
he's great. I mean, you got I'm just going down Devin Askew, another great guard going to Kentucky.
power.
Yeah, man. Um, I don't want to get too off topic because we could talk about these guys forever because I love this is one of my favorite classes of players. There's so much depth at really I would say almost any position. Uh, it's going to be such a deep, deep class with a lot of good players. But anyway, so we've talked about four of the top players in the 2021 high school class: Chet Holmgren, Pat Baldwin, Paolo Banchero, and Jaden Hardy. We've talked about their college fits. Last thing I would want to do, and I'll give you the chance first, is how would you rank these four right now? As far as maybe not all right, I'm an NBA GM and I'm drafting, but if I'm a college and I want to recruit one of these guys, who would be the priorities?
So, out of these four, if I had to choose between these four guys, I mean, I love the guys in that 6'8" to 6'10"
Yeah,
range.
I
So
do.
of course I'm gonna go with Pat Baldwin, man. And like I said, he's number one. If I was to rank these guys too, I'd go with Baldwin number one, uh, Paolo at two, Jaden Hardy at three, and actually Chet Holmgren at four.
I actually, I mean, I know this is kind of boring. I'm completely in lockstep with that. I think I agree with you.
I mean, but outside of that, I don't think none of these other guys, are better than Chet Holmgren outside of that. I mean, you could maybe think of Mike Foster, but that's probably the only competition though.
Yeah, I think a lot of early draft and recruiting guys that I've seen, they're high on AJ Griffin as a guy who could break through. Um, I again, it's so early, but I think I agree with you. Baldwin, just because he's so polished offensively, has got to be number one. Paolo's got the vision, size. Obviously, there's a little bit of a ways to go with his offensive versatility as far as scoring goes. Jaden Hardy, same thing. his offensive game so polished. A lot of the question marks defensively, but honestly, I don't know if I could put him at 2, but I think it's real. If you said Hardy was 2, I don't think I'd be mad at you. And then Chet, obviously the tools are so interesting, but there is a ways to go with him, and I think that's why I'd put him 4. Um,
Yeah, and honestly, even though he's not in this top four, I think Mike Foster is the most talented player in this class.
wow, that's a claim. And I've watched him. I watched him in person at Hoop Hall, and he is also one of those guys who you're surprised by how strong he is for his age. Like he's physical, and I think we could honestly. I know he's 24/7's got him at 9 in their composite rankings. Um, if you want to, we haven't really settled on the 4 guys, but if you want to put him in a mark him down for next episode, if you like him that much, I would love to hear what you have to say about him.
Yeah, I think honestly, if we go from 5 through 8, this is a very interesting 5 through 8. It's a 5 through 8 that a lot of guys don't pay attention to. And, if you look at ESPN, it's Jabari Smith, Mike Foster, Musa Diabate, and Nate Biddle. And Mike Foster, I love Mike Foster. Mike, I watched him play. He played with his AAU team this year. I think they're going to be a new team on EYBL, actually. And the shots that he hit for his size are like questionable, but you're like, if they go in, it doesn't matter. And another thing with him, though, he released one of the most interesting top 8s I've ever seen a couple days ago, where it included, I think, 3 overseas teams from China, Australia, and
Yeah,
something else. And then he had like Grambling State and some more schools in there. There wasn't a lot of Power Fives, so it'd be interesting to see.
that is really interesting. I don't think I remember the full list, but I remember seeing that and being like, that's unusual. And like you see, I mean, you saw guys like Jalen Green and Kaminga who put the NBA G League on their top whatever is at the last second, but to do it almost a full year early is crazy. So that is super interesting. Yeah, I think if we're picking 4 right now, so 24/7, their composite rankings I'm looking at, they have 5 is Jabari Smith, 6 is AJ Griffin, 7 is Caleb Houston, 8 is Hunter Salas, who I actually don't really know too much about him, but
Yeah. Caleb Houston actually he reclassed because he was top 3 in 2022 because he went to Montverde, of course.
mhm.
I mean, he's 6'8", probably the best shooter in 2022. Now that you move him up here, he can play for that, top shooting spot as well. He's way more consistent than Jaden Hardy, though. And the other guy was Hunter Salas, right?
Yep.
Hunter Salas is an interesting guard, one of those guards that can score but plays at a very slow pace. I watched him play against IMG earlier this year, and he kind of controlled the game against IMG, even though they didn't win. But he's a very interesting guard.
Okay. Yeah, he's someone I don't know too much about. So based on what you've said, I think a good man, there are a lot of I mean, we could honestly, it sounds like there are honestly 5 guys that we could target if you want to do 5. 5 might be a longer episode, but Mike Foster, Hunter Salas, Caleb Houston, you've mentioned you liked. I really like AJ Griffin, so I would include him. Um, I feel like it'd be tough to leave Jabari Smith out of that list, but we could also include him. Yeah, what do you think for how we should approach this?
I mean, honestly, I think we're going to have to discuss this one off camera because there's a lot of guys. You got J.D. Davison, Harrison Ingram, Kendall Brown, Kennedy Chandler, Trevor Keels, who another guy who I think can take that spot for best shooter. Trevor Keels, like 6'5", and he is a lethal shooter. I don't even want to say shooter. I might have to say scorer because he probably has the best mid-range game in this class.
He led the kind of the stunner of hoop hall was when PVI upset Sierra Canyon in front of LeBron, and I remember
Oh, yeah.
the crowd was going crazy because Trevor Keels and Doug McDaniel also was awesome, and
Jeremy
those,
Roach as well.
yeah, and Jeremy Roach, those 3 kind of led a crazy game. So yeah, I guess we'll take this off camera because it's going to be a tough decision to pick four. But before we wrap this up, any other thoughts you had on the top four, on the class in general that you wanted to talk about?
No, I pretty much think that's it. You know, this class is a very deep class. I think it's another guard class in my opinion, if you look at it, because there's a lot more guys I didn't name: Zion Harmon, Deshaun Ruffin, Langston Love. I could keep going all day with guards, but not really with bigs in this class. So we might have back-to-back guard classes when you think of 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, I mean the guard talent coming in is awesome, and I think that that's been lacking in some of the recent classes. So it's going to be really cool to see. I guess that'll wrap it up. I don't have any other thoughts. It was really cool discussing this with you. If you can't tell, Rashad knows his high school stuff, and that's helpful for me. It's probably even more helpful for you listening. It's going to be really exciting to break down this class because this is one that I'm learning a lot about, and Rashad knows a lot about. So, and you're not going to hear this in many other places. I know a lot of people will probably start to move on to the 2020 class, and we'll get to that too because it's an awesome class. But if you want kind of the first full breakdowns of 2021, this is where you're going to find it. So good stuff.
Yeah, if honestly, people do not know about 2021. I've seen a lot of guys commit already, and you see in the comment section who is that. So I think we're gonna be the first scoop on 2021.
Yes. So if you want it, come here. Crystal Basketball Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Podcast Crystal. Instagram, is it Crystal Basketball Pod?
I
We'll
think
have to
it's I think it might be Crystal Basketball Podcast with a dot separating each word. I think.
Okay, so
Yeah.
search Crystal Basketball Podcast, Twitter, YouTube. Rashad set up the TikTok, which I think is a great idea. I don't think a lot of podcasts do that, so I think that's really cool. And you can reach us at Crystal Basketball Pod at Gmail if you got any questions. We haven't really thought about doing a mailbag episode, but if someone asks a question, we would answer it. So otherwise, that's it for us. Thanks for joining us for this episode. Really cool to talk about these guys, and we will see you to break down the next four next time.